Hi, my Buzzy Bees, and welcome to another video. I forgot to record an intro for this video, so we will be talking about the books that I read through March to May, and I hope you enjoy my reviews. The first book that I read in March is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which is this one right here. And this is about Violet Soaringale, who knows there's no more time for lessons, no more time for uncertainty because the battle has truly begun, and with the enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it's impossible to know who to trust. This is the third book in the Fourth Wing series. I gave this a 3-star rating. I didn't enjoy the pacing. Sometimes it felt like it was taking too long for things to unfold, and other times it felt like it was being rushed. It felt like a little boring, a little in places, and sometimes things seemed skipped over. I was very disappointed by some key points and developments of the story itself as well, which contributed to my rating. I would recommend this book to existing Fourth Wing fans, as it does hold a 4.2 star rating on Goodreads, but I may not recommend this to new readers. The second book that I read in March was Funny Story by Emily Henry. It is about Daphne and Miles. Daphne had a fiance named Peter, but he fell in love, or he realized that he fell in love with his childhood best friend. So Daphne ends up with that best friend's ex as her roommate. He's exactly the opposite of practical, buttoned-up Daphne, whose co-workers know so little about her. They have a running bet that she's either an FBI or with witness protection. I think that this book has great humor, and it goes from a tenuous friendship and a plan to falling in love. My rating is 6 stars. If I could rank it 6 stars, obviously it is 5 stars, but I would give it a 6 if I could. It was so relatable, humorous, and written really well. For me personally, if the writing is engaging and has you fully immersed in the book, you probably won't see the problems that it has unless it's pinpointed it out. And this was the case for this book for me. She writes such an intricate character who you can relate with, the realistic qualities and problems that make you feel less alone because you see how another character faces the same problems as yourself. The relationships that Daphne has are down to earth and, again, realistic, relatable. And overall, I think I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed that this book didn't stretch the truth in any scenario. I would highly recommend this book. It is a romance and not suited for all ages, and mind the trigger warnings. On Fable, it lists spicy scenes, child abuse, grief abuse, and light substance abuse. So in April, I read another ebook. It was Sunrise on the Reaping. This was my first Hunger Games book, so I'm really excited to tell you my rating for this book. As the day dawns on the 50th annual Hunger Games, fear grips the district of Panem. This year, in honor of the Quarter Quell, twice as many tributes will be taken from their homes. Back in District 12, Hamish is trying not to think too hard about his chances. All he cares about is making it through the day and being with a girl that he loves. When Hamish's name is called, he can feel all his dreams break. He's torn from his family and his love of his life, shuttled into the capital with the 3 other District 12 tributes, and a young friend who's nearly a sister him, a compulsive odds maker, and the most stuck-up girl in town. When the games begin, Hamish understands that he's set up to fail, but there's something in him that wants to fight and have that fight reverberate far beyond the deadly arena. I rated this strong 5 stars with tears. This book is so unbelievably devastating. It was the very first Hunger Games that I read, as I mentioned, and I have seen all the movies. When there was a lot of hype on TikTok about Sunrise on the Reaping, I thought, what was the worst that could happen? I just was like, yeah, let's read a Hunger Games book. I knew it was a prequel to the trilogy, so I was like, why not? And it was, the book in one word would be heartbreaking, but there is so much that the story covers, and I love so many of the events in the book reflect real world problems. I definitely couldn't recommend this book enough, but I would keep trigger warnings in mind when reading this, such as violence, death, murder, grief, and child loss. I read another ebook in April, which is Hunt on Dark Waters by Katie Roberts. It is about Evelyn, a witch with a perfect storm of bad impulses, terrible taste in bed partners, sticky fingers, and a lust for danger. After she steals from a vampire who is her ex and falls through a portal to another realm, she's fished out of the waters by a band of seafarers and their telekinetic captain. She's immediately given a choice to join the group or die. Bowen and his crew, which is the captain, are bound by a vow to patrol the threshold, which is a magical sea between realms, keeping the portals to the other world safe. When he rescues Evelyn, he doesn't expect to be attracted to the unflappable pickpocket, but the longer he spends in her presence, the more he begins to question if his heart is the next thing she will steal. As the tension heats up between Bowen and Evelyn, the danger escalates as well, because Evelyn has no intention of keeping her vows, and if she betrays the crew, both she and Bowen will pay the ultimate price. I rated this title 3 stars. Let me start by saying I was told this is one of the most tamed books by Katie if we're talking on the spicy scale, and it was too much for me. I am not spicy book girly, and it was over the line of romance. That's not for me. However, the story, I was so engulfed that I felt like I was evaporated and teleported into this new world. It was phenomenal. It was different from any other fantasy I've read. Its uniqueness and style of writing was fantastic. I do think it could have been a 4-star if I was more a fan of the characters as well. The story does flip between 2 different POVs between Evelyn and Bowen, and I just was not a fan of the narration of some of the characters. Would I recommend? It depends. For the story itself, I definitely would recommend 100%, but are you okay with the level of spice this book contains? Are you a YA reader? That's what would determine if I would recommend this title. The next book that I read in April was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is by Holly Jackson, and it is about a character named Pip. Andy Bell, which was a pretty popular high school senior, was murdered by her boyfriend, allegedly, Sal, who then killed himself. It was all anyone could think about after 5 years. Pip sees this tragedy that still haunts the town. She wants to use it for her project to apply for a college to prove that Sal was innocent. And the line between the past and the present begins to blur. Someone in Fairview doesn't want Pip digging around for the answers, and her own life becomes in danger. This was my first mystery novel, and I devoured it in 3 days. Look at all of the tabs that I have. Oh, was I holding it backwards? No. Okay. If you can guess, I gave it 5 stars. And I think some people dislike this because of the main character. She is quirky and corny, and I think some of the adults might forget what it's like to think like someone who's in early to mid high school. And for that, some people might rate this book a little bit low or DNF, which means did not finish. However, for me, I enjoy the quirkiness and the determination of Pip and the mysteries, even the red herrings and plot holes. They kept me wondering, guessing, and on the edge of my seat as I read. If you're a reader who can appreciate a novel for simply its story, the thrill of the mystery, you will greatly enjoy this series. If you're a reader who likes flushed out, no red herrings thriller, then maybe it's not for you. In May, I read a novel in verse. I got it from the library. It's been returned, so I'll put a picture here. It is about a 12-year-old girl named Maddie. She hatches a scheme for a secret sleepover with two of her best friends. She ends up waking up to a nightmare. She's alone, left behind in a town that has been mysteriously evacuated and abandoned. With no one to rely on, no power, no working phone lines or internet, Maddie slowly learns to survive on her own. Her only companion is a Rottweiler named George and all of the books that she can read at the library. After a rough start, Maddie learns to trust her own self and invents clever ways to survive in a place that has been deserted and forgotten. As the months pass, she escapes natural disasters, looters, and wild animals, but Maddie's most formidable enemy is the crushly loneliness that she faces every day. Can Maddie's stubborn will to survive carry her through the most frightening experience? This novel was my first novel in verse, and I had a really good time with this book. At first, it was a 3-star, but then I realized that I had a sequel. I changed my rating from a 3 to a 4-star. The ending was written with more questions than answers, without any hint to another book. So for that, I gave it 4 stars. The character was amazing. They were determined, brave, relatable, and such an engaging story until the very last page. I would definitely recommend this book. It is a quick read, and who doesn't love a quick read to add to your yearly read books? I mean, come on. I think anyone can pick up this book and have a really good time. So the second book I read in May was Good Girl, Bad Blood. So this is the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. With the help of Ravi, she released a true crime podcast about the murder case they solved together in the first book. The podcast has gone viral, yet Pip insists her investigating days are behind her. She will still have to break that promise with someone she knows goes missing. Jamie has disappeared on the same night the town hosted a memorial of the 6-year anniversary of the deaths of Andy and Sal. The police won't do anything about it, and if they won't look for Jamie, then Pip obviously has to, uncovering more of her town's secrets along the way, and this time everyone is listening on her podcast. Will she find him before it's too late? I rated this book a 4.25 out of 5. The feelings that I expressed or experienced when reading this book didn't match the feelings when reading the first book. I felt less excitement. The mystery was less in depth. The plot twist felt jaw-dropping. But I like how the first book took a few chapters to unravel the plot twist, rather than in this book it happened more rapidly. There are some things that I wish that were more explained. Sometimes Pip just comes up with a conclusion and you don't know how or why. But overall, it was a great read. I would recommend this if you read the first book of the series. Pip develops more into a character she has to become, and she finds herself more and more determined and smarter than ever before. The last book that I read in May is Please Pay Attention. I actually read this one on stream. I do reading sprints on Monday nights at 5 or 5:30 p.m. EST. So if you want to come join for that, I will be live on Twitch. But let's get talking about what this book is about. Now, I will say there is trigger warnings for gun violence. So if that is a trigger for you, you can skip to the end of the video. There is a before and after for 8th grader B. Before the shooting at our school that took the lives of her classmates and teacher, and after, when she must figure out how to grieve, live, and keep rolling forward. But as her community rallies in a tidal wave of marches and speeches and protests, B can't get past the helplessness that she felt in her wheelchair as others around her took cover. Though the help of the therapeutic horseback riding has helped, B finally begins to feel like herself again. And as she heals and finds her voice and the bravery to demand change. I rated this a 3.5 stars. For myself, it could have been more enjoyable to read if some things were not sugar-coated. I also think with the verse, it could have been more gut-wrenching verses that really make you go, dang, this really shouldn't happen and we really need to change. It did do that, but I feel like there could have been more meaningful verses like the novel and verse alone. I feel they developed, or they got the message across more. I believe that when you want change, targeting the youth is where you should start. So I do want to keep in mind that they are trying to include all ages. And like I was saying, youth is where you should start, as they are the most valuable and multiple audience and the generation that could make a change. I would recommend this read. However, I would heed the trigger warnings, as it is a very heavy subject matter, and I think more awareness should be brought to this issue, and we do really need change. So that is all the books that I have read from March to May. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys for the next one. Bye!